I've worked in drug development for over 2 decades, and the goal when developing these products is to derive the maximum benefit from taking the minimum effective dose, which is how you minimize unwanted effects. Microdosing is the same concept and is commonly associated with psychedelics, wellness, performance enhancement, and creativity. People microdose daily to feel and perform better. Some people use it to enhance their creativity, to sleep better, to help with pain, to have more focus in the moment, to recover from workouts quicker, and to manage anxiety. Today's podcast is sponsored by Microdose Gummies. Microdose Gummies deliver perfect entry-level doses of THC that help you feel just the right amount of good. My significant other used some of the Microdose Gummies, and I also tried their strain-specific gummies as well before doing yard work last weekend. Let's just say my lawn was cut, edged, and weed-whacked before I even got out of bed at 9 a.m. And we have an acre and a half. The gummies brought focus to mundane tasks and didn't diminish energy levels, so needless to say, we were happy with the product. Microdose is available nationwide. To learn more about microdosing THC, go to microdose.com and use code BEYOND to get free shipping and 30% off your first order. Links can be found in the show description, but again, that's microdose.com and code BEYOND, BEYOND.
This podcast contains adult themes and graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised.
A commercial-free version of this podcast is available on Patreon for $1 per month. Patreon.com/Beyond Contempt podcast. I'm Renee, and this is Beyond Contempt True Crime. It is always extraordinarily scary when someone who wears a badge commits a terrible crime and uses that badge as cover to hide. You're listening to episode 60, Jeffrey Moreland. On October 29th, 2010, Paige Whitney was worried about her mother, Nina Whitney, since she had not heard from her. Her mother lived alone in Kansas City, Missouri, so Paige made sure they talked on the phone daily. The fact Paige couldn't reach her was concerning, so she drove to Nina's house instead. When she opened the front door and walked inside, her mother was lifeless, laying face down on the ground at the bottom of the stairs. Paige assumed that her mother had a heart attack and fell. After the 911 call, police attended to the scene. They rolled Nina onto her back and immediately realized that they had a homicide on their hands. The 75-year-old woman had been stabbed several times, and there were signs of sexual assault. Police found DNA on her body, and the blouse she was wearing had been pulled up. The buttons were missing as well. When investigators searched Nina's home, they found that the tub's faucet had been turned on and was left running. In the kitchen, there was a bent, bloody knife found in the drawer. In Nina's bedroom, the missing blouse buttons were found near her bed. Investigators believe this was where the attack began. Police believe that after Nina was sexually assaulted, the suspect turned on the bath because he wanted to wash away the DNA evidence. Nina tried to escape during this time, and that was likely when the murder happened. Strangely, there were no signs of forced entry into the home. One notable thing that was missing from Nina's house was her cell phone. Police tracked her phone, and it was in the possession of a stranger who claimed he found it by the street close to the victim's house. They considered him a suspect until his alibi checked out, and his DNA did not match the DNA found on Nina. Police knocked on neighbors' doors to find out if they witnessed anything out of the ordinary, especially given the perpetrator dumped Nina's cell phone out on the street. At 2 p.m. that day, one neighbor had seen a white man in his 50s who was acting strange. He parked his black Jeep by Nina's house and had a noticeable limp. From this information, police were able to generate a composite sketch. Law enforcement hypothesized that Nina knew her attacker, since they had not broken into her house. Even so, Nina's daughter, Paige, did not know the person in the sketch. Police ran searches on the DNA found on the victim, and it matched another crime that happened in Harrisonville, Missouri. This was only about 40 minutes away from Nina Whitney in Kansas City. This other crime had been an unsolved cold case that happened 2 years prior, on November 5, 2008. Kara Jo Roberts visited her father that day. She wanted to have lunch, but he was too busy with work. He promised to stop by later, since he recently went hunting and had some meat to drop off. Kara had lunch with her husband Jeff instead. After, she went home to assemble a bed for her toddler son, who was with the babysitter. Kara spoke to her husband on the phone at 2:30 p.m. that day, and that was the last time anyone heard from her. Kara's father stopped by her house to drop off the meat, but she didn't answer the door. He heard water running and called out for his daughter, but there was no answer. He didn't want to enter her house, even though the door was ajar, so he left the cooler worth of food outside and called Kara's husband Jeff, who was at work. Jeff called the babysitter who had not seen Kara, and she still had their son Carter with her since no one picked him up. At 5:30 p.m., Jeff went home, and his front door wasn't locked. He searched the house and found his wife face down in the bathtub with the water that was left running. The tub held approximately 6 to 8 inches of water, which was tinged with blood. Kara was in the tub face down. Jeff turned her over, and she was not breathing, so he called for help. Police determined that the nude woman was deceased. A Luger RP 9mm shell casing and a copper jacket fragment from the bullet were both found under Kara Jo's body. There was blood in the bathtub, on the edge of the tub, on part of the toilet, on the bathroom door threshold, and the door itself. The faucet had been running hot water for so long that the hot water tank was depleted, and the running water was now cold. They found no clothing or towels in the bathroom, so this was not where the attack started. There was a clump of hair on the wall near the bathtub. Police pulled a palm print off the sink and the edge of the bathtub. There were locked zip ties that had been cut close to the tub and also in the hallway outside of the bathroom. In the bedroom, the bedding had been stripped off the bed and placed on the floor. They found a roll of duct tape under the edge of the bed. When the autopsy was conducted, it was apparent that the victim had been shot in the back of the head. The bullet entered behind the left ear and exited the left cheek. The bullet re-entered her thigh, and the exit wound was not found. There was significant damage to her brain and bones on the left side of her head. They found bullet fragments in the left leg. The medical examiner surmised that they shot the victim in the back of the head when she was in a fetal position. The gunshot wound caused the death. There was an abrasion on the victim's right breast and bruises on her palm, right thumb, right forearm, left forearm, legs, and buttocks. Kara Jo had been sexually assaulted. Semen was found in the victim's vagina and swabs were taken. There was DNA on the zip ties and duct tape. The results from the duct tape determined that the DNA was from the unknown male. The results from the zip ties determined the DNA was from both the victim and the unknown male. Last, the results from the vaginal swabs determined the DNA was from the victim's husband, Jeff Roberts, and from the unknown male. There was less DNA from Jeff than from the unknown male, which meant that Jeff had intercourse with Kara in an earlier time frame, and the sexual assault occurred later. They took nothing from the house. There were no signs of forced entry, and her purse was still full of money. When the police went around and spoke with Kara Jo's neighbors, there was a witness that day that saw a strange man walking in their neighborhood. Police generated a composite sketch of the suspect. They analyzed the DNA from a few dozen willing males, but there was never a match, and the case went cold until Nina Whitney's murder. Police knew the perpetrator was the same person for both crimes, but authorities didn't have a name to go along with the DNA evidence. There was a genuine concern that this was the work of a serial killer. While there was a disparity in the ages of the victims, their cases had similarities. There were no signs of forced entry, the bathtubs were running, and they were both sexually assaulted. Other than the DNA, police could not find a real-life link between the two deceased women. But Nina Whitney's daughter would set the cases on a path of resolution. Paige was driving past a billboard that contained the sketch of her mother's killer. Out of nowhere, she knew who the man was. That chin was undeniable, and it was like she was transported back to the 1980s. It was her old boyfriend, Jeffrey Moreland. Her mother wanted Paige to marry him because he was intelligent, funny, sweet, and charming. They met in a criminal justice class, dated for 3 years, then broke up in 1987. Paige knew that he became a police officer with the Grandview PD, but had to quit because of a Parkinson's disease diagnosis. She hadn't seen him since 1994. The individual she knew had been a good person and absolutely loved being a police officer. Her mother was very cautious around strangers and would not have let them into her house. But Paige's mother knew him and adored him. She would have let him in the house without question, and he knew she lived alone. Paige took this information to the police. When they looked into Jeffrey Moreland, he had a black Jeep, which was seen parked by Nina Whitney's home. He lived in Harrisonville, Missouri, which was the same small town as Cara Jo Roberts. As it turned out, Jeffrey Moreland was on the same Monday Night Bowling League as Jeff Roberts, so there was a potential connection. But police believe that Moreland randomly saw Cara Jo outside of her home. HelloFresh gives you fresh, pre-measured ingredients and mouth-watering recipes delivered right to your front door. HelloFresh lets you skip those trips to the grocery store and makes home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Every week you get to pick from 50 different meal options. You can swap out proteins or upgrade your meals. You can skip weeks of meals if you need to, or change the delivery day. And I've done all those things because I've actually been using HelloFresh for months, long before they've sponsored my podcast. I've been living between 2 cities in Tennessee for a few months now, and HelloFresh has helped keep my sanity. I don't have to think about anything other than selecting the meals I want. And the best part is that they always have some type of sauce or twist or something that really adds a lot to the meal, and it's something that I would never be able to come up with on my own, and it's my favorite part. Go to HelloFresh.com/Beyond16 and use the promo code Beyond16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That's HelloFresh.com/Beyond16. Promo code Beyond16. HelloFresh, they're America's #1 meal kit. In June 2011, detectives from the Kansas City Police Department paid a visit to Jeffrey Moreland, intending to get a DNA sample. Moreland said he was busy and couldn't do it that day. Detectives drove to Harrisonville again to ask for a DNA sample, but Moreland gave the excuse that he had to take his cat to the vet. Moreland got in touch with a sergeant at the Grandview Police, who he had worked with when he was a patrolman. They met at a gas station and parked next to each other to finally take care of the DNA samples. Moreland swabbed his cheek, but then lowered the swab below the window so it was out of the officer's line of sight. He covertly grabbed another swab and placed it in the bottle, then held it up in the view of the sergeant. Moreland handed the swab sample to the officer. He then pulled the same trick with the finger stick. Moreland was really giving the police a sample from his son-in-law-to-be. He told his family that he needed the DNA for a paternity test because there was a woman who was threatening him. The Kansas City detectives received a voice message from Jeffrey Moreland stating that the DNA samples were done and they should collect them from the Grandview Police Department. Moreland was confident that this would be the last time he would speak with the police on this matter. When Kansas City PD analyzed the DNA results, Moreland's samples did not match any of the DNA from the murders. The whole DNA swab issue had rattled Moreland. He fled to Iowa where his parents were living. Moreland attempted suicide on Father's Day by ingesting too much medication, which earned him a hospital stay. He might have been able to skate by with the fake DNA swabs he gave Kansas City PD, but he committed one more crime that helped seal his fate. On June 30th, in Harrisonville, Missouri, a woman was walking home when a man in a black Jeep offered her a ride. It was a hot day, and against her better judgment, she accepted the ride. Instead of dropping her off where she requested, the man wildly drove the woman to his house. The woman noticed a badge on the console of his vehicle. At his house, he pulled off the woman's dress and restrained her. She tried to fight him, and it resulted in him striking her on the head. The man said he picked her up because she looked vulnerable. He called her stupid for getting into his car. The woman was raped and sodomized. She was worried that he was going to strangle and kill her, but she was quick on her feet and said if he paid her, then it was not rape. The man made her take a shower to wash off any evidence. He gave her two $50 bills, dropped her off at home, and said he would be back tomorrow. She would get another $100. That night, she stayed at a friend's house, and when she headed home the next day, the man was waiting for her in his Jeep. The victim went to the police. Despite the shower he made her take, the detectives did a rape kit, and DNA from the man was the same DNA found in Nina Whitney and Kara Jo Roberts' cases. The victim described the location of the house where she was raped, and when detectives drove there, one of them immediately recognized the house as Jeffrey Moreland's. This confirmed that Moreland perpetrated the crimes. However, the detective had a minor problem to sort out. They had already tested Jeffrey Moreland's DNA, and it had not matched. When law enforcement spoke with Moreland's ex-wife, she clued them in on the fact that the DNA sample he provided to police was not his, and he got it from his son-in-law-to-be. The police tested Moreland's daughter's fiancé, and the DNA matched the samples Moreland gave to the Grandview police, so they officially caught him in his lie. Moreland got wind of the rape accusation, and he again fled to Iowa and attempted suicide a second time, which landed him in the hospital. Police tracked him by his cell phone, and he was arrested. They took an official DNA swab from Moreland, and it matched the DNA found in the murder and rape cases. He was fingerprinted, and his right index finger matched the print on the duct tape from Kara Jo Roberts' house. They searched Moreland's home in Harrisonville and found zip ties that resembled the ones used in the crime. Police took possession of Moreland's Glock 45, which had a magazine full of 12 rounds. They got a search warrant for Jeffrey Moreland's father's home and took a Browning 9mm, but he did not use these guns in any of the known crimes. Jeffrey Moreland ultimately faced 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of armed criminal action, 2 counts of sodomy, and 1 count of rape. Moreland's bail was set high with a $1 million cash-only bond. Grandview PD still had Jeffrey Moreland's name listed on their website as the contact person for the Grandview Police Employee Association. They moved quickly to distance themselves from their former employee, stating that he retired in 2005, and they had no affiliation with him after that. He committed the crimes after his retirement. When Moreland appeared in court, he was in a wheelchair. Whether he was using the chair to gain sympathy was an open question. However, his cuffed hands shook from the Parkinson's disease. Moreland was indigent and required a public defender. He had been married and divorced a few times, but he was married to his third wife as he faced these charges. Jeffrey Moreland graduated high school in 1977. He became a part-time police officer in Afton, Iowa from August 1980 through January 1981, when he quit. Moreland went to college at Central Missouri State and was hired as a police officer in Grandview, Missouri in 1984. His master's degree was in criminology. Moreland dated and married his high school sweetheart. They separated, and he dated Paige Whitney for a few years. They broke up in 1987. Moreland's second wife had been a college intern at his police station, and they tied the knot in 1989 or 1990. The couple had one daughter and divorced in 1994. Moreland met his third wife through his parents in Iowa, and they married in the mid-1990s. She worked as a court clerk in Grandview, then took another clerk job in Harrisonville, where their family settled down and had 2 kids. When Jeffrey Moreland went to court for the rape and sodomy charges, he told his family that the victim was making accusations up because it was a money grab. When he went to court for the murder charges, his wife was notably absent. She eventually filed for divorce, and child visitation was not part of the agreement. Moreland's first murder trial was in 2013, and the jury found him guilty of the first-degree murder of Kara Jo Roberts. They sentenced him to life in prison plus 50 years. In 2020, the jury found Moreland guilty of the murder of Nina Whitney. He received an additional 30 years. Kara Jo and Jeffrey Roberts had married on June 17, 2004. They got married in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and had a 2-year-old son, Carter. 30-year-old Kara Jo loved being a mom and was devoted to her family. The people in the small community of Harrisonville described her as a down-to-earth woman and free spirit. She had been employed at an insurance company in the insurance contract and license department. Kara was a member of the Sycamore Grove Mennonite Church near Garden City. She was a 1996 graduate of Harrisonville High School and graduated from Central Missouri State University, Warrensburg, in December 2000 with a business administration degree and a minor in marketing. Kara enjoyed her family, going shopping, camping, going to barbecues, and the Elks Lodge in Harrisonville. She was a lifelong resident of the area. Nina Whitney was born in Delmont, Douglas County, South Dakota. She was remembered for being generous and kind-hearted. Nina was an independent woman and lived by herself in Kansas City. She had the nickname of Frog Lady, as it was her passion to collect all kinds of frogs, and she proudly displayed them all over her house. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Beyond Contempt. Please visit BeyondContemptPodcast.com for the links to the sources and music used in this episode. Research, writing, editing, audio production, and sound design were performed by me, Renee. I want to thank patron Denise B. Appreciate you supporting the show. If you like the show, please leave me a positive review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thank you so much, everyone.